Alright, it is time for my next video. And this one's going to be easy. I could do this in my sleep. One's going to just pop right out, make perfect sense. I'm not going to have to think about stuff. I don't have to stop and think about my words before I say them, so I don't trip up and say something I don't want to express or come out wrong. I can just do this one. So we're coming about to the end of this series, pretty much, more or less. I'll probably do another video or two when I get a chance to think about it and think about what I want to say about next steps and what I want to say about behavior, because it's hard to be patient. Yes, things are going to change in the next 10 years. It's hard to wait. It's hard to be aggressive in the right way without going overboard. But that's exactly what we need to do, right? We need voices out there, like Sargon of Akkad. You should listen to him. He's a smart man, even though he's British, and he pays a lot more attention to the British politics than he does American politics. He's still worth listening to. He at least tells the truth about what the foreigners are like, the impact they've had on Britain, how it's changed the place, how he feels about it, how other people feel about it, and he gives you the scoop, and he does it straight up. It's right there. So the one thing I do want to do before I kind of slack off or move on or do other things or whatever I'm going to do from here, I do want to give you the one piece, I think, of philosophical advice that will make all this work. If you hold on to it and you'll do it the right way, and you'll think about it the right way, and you'll respond to it the right way, then you'll actually begin to lay the groundwork to engage in the struggle over our futures and what it means and against these crazy people. And you'll do it the right way, and you'll do it in a calculated, measured response that will get us the correct results. And there's only one thing you need to know. There's only one thing. This is a political philosophy, a life philosophy, a way of looking at the world that's easy. It's as easy as you want to make it. But you have to get this one groove down if you want to be a part of the answer. Because I'll tell you what's not going to happen. Okay? What's not going to happen is you're going to sit back and you're going to play your Xbox and you're going to let society collapse. And you're going to step in and you're going to swoop in like Batman and just fix everything magically. And just take charge and be masters of the universe from there on. No, you're not. No, you're not. Absolutely not. You get winded going to the bathroom. You live in your parents' basement. There are no Zerg armies. There are no Zerg destroyers. Nobody's going to fall over because you push a button on your Xbox in real life. Ever. Ever. So you're going to have to actually engage the physical world, which means you may need to get up and walk some. You may need to actually talk to a person directly. These things may be required of you. You may have to listen to what someone says to you. Oh, I know. It's all hard. It's all hard. It's all hard. But I'm going to make it easy for you with my one piece of philosophy. The one thing. So I've told you already about the Fermi paradox. I've told you already about the end of the universe. There's nothing you can carry out of here. You can't save the earth. a billion years from now, it's all going to fry anyway. Whatever plants and animals are left here, and there's nothing you can do about it. So there's no use in crying. Your pride, nobody cares. Nobody cares. You know, oh, when I die, at least I'll have my pride. Nobody cares. When you die, the only people that's going to be around are going to be those who are wondering what you left them. The rest of the world isn't going to give a damn when you die. Unless you manage to die on a battlefield somewhere. I mean, almost literally. Like, you die either fighting a war, or you die as a victim of the conflict between the Islamic and the Western civilizations, and the Islamic and the other civilizations. Unless you die as a victim, you're just dead. You can tell yourself that about pride all you want. It doesn't matter. It doesn't mean anything. It's worthless. It's worthless. To walk out of this world with your pride is like walking out of this world with a handful of poop. And it'll smell just as bad. So I'm going to suggest something else to you. I'm going to suggest to you that the Beatles got it right. That all you need is love. Because if you walk out of this world with just your pride, you still haven't walked out of this world with anything but something for yourself. And nobody cares. You have to leave it all behind. And now I've heard idiot preachers say that, when you die, everything goes back in the box, right? Like it's a board game, right? No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. It doesn't go back in the box. If you own stocks, they get sold. Somebody else buys them, and they own them now. If you have a house, it goes to one of your family members, or it gets sold. Somebody else lives in it. Nothing goes back. Nothing goes back in the box until the world ends and the game's over. Sorry, there's craziness going on outside. I could not have predicted that. But it's great for you to hear the nuttiness, right? So, just play it along. So, let me continue. So, here's the thing. There's one thing and one thing only that you actually can walk out of this life with. That you loved enough to act upon it. That's it. You did or you didn't. You were moved or you weren't. You were moved or you weren't. So now, let's talk about this love thing for a second. Because I do want to give you an explanation. I want to give you a thorough explanation. Okay? Because, as a person of the Christian faith, the Bible says, love your enemies. Pray for those that despitefully use you. Yeah, you do that. But that's a different kind of love. Literally a different kind of love. I love it. I have to tell you the truth. The craziness you may or may not hear in the background on this tape, that doesn't really happen in this neighborhood much. This is the first time I've ever heard somebody here go crazy. So, yeah, no, I just left a gallon of water on my scooter for 45 minutes, and I walked outside and grabbed it because nobody bothered to take it. And it's on the scooter. They could have just reached over, grabbed it, and walked off, and nobody would even have seen it. But nobody does that around here, so it's kind of abnormal. But in case you didn't wonder, there's some woman out there screaming that she's not resisting arrest or whatever, blah blah blah, and this whatever. So this is the first time I've ever seen anybody like in this whole neighborhood get arrested. The cops they swing through every once in a while. They stop and look at somebody, and then they move on. And yeah, my neighborhood's not like that. Surprisingly, not like that. But I want to try to stay on track here. So there are different layers to this love. But love's important. I want to give you an explanation, and then we'll get into the specifics. So why would I say love is the only thing that you can take out of this world? Well, partly because it's true. It's the only thing that other people will ever remember you for. It's the only thing your neighbors will remember you for next week. It's the only thing anybody will ever remember you for. Right? Is that you love them, right? You were there. You were happy. You were smiling. You supported them. You at least listened to their troubles or whatever the case may be, right? You were on their side. And that is the only winning motivation you can have. That's why the Nazis failed. That's why the Soviet Union failed. I will give you a spiritual and a worldly principle that you can take to the bank. There is no amount of hate that can defeat those who love. No amount. No amount ever. There's no amount. I want to say that again. There's no amount of hate that you can have that will give you the power to overcome love. The Nazis hated. The Nazis hated the British. The Nazis hated the French for defeating them in World War I. They hated America. They hated capitalism. They hated communism. They hated their enemies. They hated those that they blamed for their failures. They hated everybody. They hated everybody. They hated everybody. But you can't win with hate. You get the maximum actually out of your troops, out of your forces, out of your personnel, out of your engineers, because you love. Okay? The British were fighting for what they loved. They cheered Winston Churchill. When the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor, it took one speech. And people were lining up around the block to volunteer to fight. To volunteer to fight. The Japanese felt dishonored. They felt, that they had been kind of blown off after World War I. They had been ignored. They had already defeated the Russian Navy before World War I, long before World War I started. They felt that they were just being kicked around as the little kid on the block. So they hated. They hated the Americans. They hated the other Asians because they were the only country basically in all of Asia that had their shit together, at least somewhat, enough to actually be able to defeat another army or another navy in combat. And it's crazy that they, but they hate it, and you can't win with hate. You have to love something. That's why we were right to drop the bombs on Japan. Because when it came to their homeland, they would have been fighting for something that they loved. And that would have been a bloodbath. And it would have been a long, brutal, hard to live with bloodbath. That would have been, that would have been 1 million casualties. That would have been 1 million casualties as a floor on all sides. That would have been ugly. That would have been far uglier than any liberal, any nonsense liberal in this world could ever imagine. Think about Iraq, but with two forces that are actually almost the same size, even though the naval forces for the Americans were much larger. But it's not a barren desert. There's trees and jungles and places to hide. And the people fighting would have been fighting for their own homes and their families and what their nature and what they believed in, rather than just being Shias fighting for their side and the Sunnis fighting for their side. They would have actually been fighting for one thing. Yeah, I know, that would have been way, way different. But that's the difference, though. The Soviet Union hated capitalism, hated democracy, hated America, hated most freedoms. They just hated everything that wasn't communist. But you can't win like that. A real battle is a desperate struggle. It's a desperate struggle between two sides. A honest-to-God real battle and war is a mess. There are bullets, there are shells, there are bombs flying everywhere. There's no safe spaces. Not even behind stuff. During World War I, the Germans took to setting up little metal plates that they could use for their snipers to snipe from behind. The British developed a bullet to penetrate it. There's no safe spaces in a real battle. Yeah, no, it's not pretty. It's not even as pretty as what you saw on TV with Saving Private Ryan. It's not pretty. Saving Private Ryan, that was still pretty generic. No. When you have two bad, think about the American Civil War. Now there you have two sides. They're both fighting for something that they love. The North loves America. The North loves freedom. The North loves the Protestant morality that gave them the same sense of rightness that the British Empire had already had to get rid of slavery. But the South were also fighting for something that they loved. They were fighting for their homes, their states that they had lived in and grown up, that had actually been, unlike today, for the most part, more important than the federal government. They were fighting for their way of life. Even if it did include slavery, they were fighting for their overall way of life. They knew that once the slaves were gone, things were going to change, and it certainly did. So you have these two armies, and it takes them 4 years because both sides loved what they were fighting for. And when that happens, people rise to the occasion on both sides. And so instead of having one-sided battles, you have Shiloh and Gettysburg, and Antietam, and Fredericksburg. There's no goodness. There's no goodness in war. General Lee said it right. Thank God that he made war so brutal, else we'd grow too fond of it. But that's the only thing that can drive you to that place of desperation to hold on, is love. A great love. A great love is the only thing that can do that. And there's no amount of hate. There's no amount of hate you can muster in any people that can overcome a group of people that work out of love. And it's just a fact. So I want now to talk to you gentlemen and the few ladies involved who may be red pill and black pill at this point, and maybe wanting to sit around and just thumb it up with the PlayStation until it's over. Right? When you give up this love, you give up your humanity. You can be immoral and and make up for it and still try. David took command's wife and then killed the man. And it was one of his best men, and killed the man over his wife. But then he repents. As soon as it's pointed out to him, oh God, I'm sorry, I did wrong here. Because he had more love than he did hate. And that always works its way through you. That always works its way out of you. And without it, you lose a good chunk of what makes you a real human being. A real human being is not someone who has rational thoughts. A real human being is someone who has rational thoughts and is able to turn them into motivation for proper action. That is what makes us human. Animals go out here and hunt whatever. Don't really kill what they care as long as they can eat it. Don't really care if they strip all the bark or all the leaves off a tree and it dies, as long as they can eat it. Nothing else matters. But you and I have the ability to take these thoughts and these reasonings and these logics and turn them into motivation for positive action. And that's humanity. That's humanity. Humanity is the ability to look at the stars and see the stars and make of them what we will. That active interpretation into something meaningful is the difference between you and me and everything else. And when you give up that ability, you give up your humanity. So I'm going to give you an exercise. I'm going to give you some homework to help you along your way here, so that you too might join in the great train of history and take your part in it. Because, as I said earlier, loving your enemies is different than loving your friends. The Bible says that no greater love does any man have than this, that he lays down his life for his friends. He can love his enemies. You can pray for those who despitefully use you. You should want good for everybody. But then there's this other level of friends, of those people who are on your side, those people who are comrades, those people who have thrown in with good and right just like you have. I'm an American, but my struggles are minor compared to 99% of the world. They face the same prejudices and the same craziness and the same bizarre insistence upon communist political and economic systems that just simply don't work and are never going to work, but the whole world just simply insists on beating a square peg into a round hole. That's everywhere. That's everywhere. And it should move you. It should move you like nothing else to watch those protesters in Hong Kong lift up American flags and sing our national anthem. That should chill you to the bone. That should make your heart skip a beat. That should fire up a love for them in your heart that burns like a fire. And here's your homework, ladies and gentlemen. If it doesn't, you need to take a look at yourself. Because it's one thing not to love your enemies, but it's another thing altogether not to love your friends. It's one thing to at least support and publicly support and say so and come out and put forth that I'm on their side. I may not even be able to help, but I'm on their side by God. And it means something to me. They are my allies and my friends and my brothers and sisters. And they don't have to be perfect. And they don't even have to give a damn that I'm on their side. Because my love is to motivate and spur me on to do the things I'm supposed to do, whether they do or not. And that's your homework. If you do not, if you cannot, if you can't put down the sour grapes and the black pill enough, and the red pill enough, to support your friends, then you'll deserve the losses you face. Just like everybody else. Let me grab a piece of paper. I want to explain something to you real quick. I want to explain something to you real quick. Because life's a lot more straightforward than what people give it credit for. Okay? So I want to teach you something here real quick, because I want to teach you something about love. Because here's the thing. Love has this really weird spelling. Love has this really weird spelling. You don't have to tell me what you love. You don't have to tell me what you like. You don't have to tell me what you care for. I can see it in what you do. You can tell me whatever you want. But I know what you for. Because that's what love is. Jesus said, wherever your treasure is, there your heart is also. Wherever you put your treasure, that's where your heart is also. And he wasn't talking just about money. He was talking about everything. He was talking about your time and your effort and your consideration. And the things that you think about. And the things that you focus on. And the things that you at. That's what you love. You love what you for. This isn't rocket science. And you for stuff, for people, for things, for ideas, well, you don't love them. That's it. That's all. Life isn't hard. You love things enough for them, or you don't. If you don't, you don't love them. Not really. You may like them. You may be friends with them. Right? I mean, there's lots of people out there that say lots of things about science, right? And you know, I'm an atheist, I believe in science. No, you don't. You know, like the joke says, you like to look at his ass while it walks by, but you don't really care about it. I know that. Because I study more than you. I learn more than you. I can write a song and take a great photograph because... You understand? This is not rocket science. None of this is rocket science. This isn't weird. You don't need to go to some astrophysicist to understand, you know, or some remote viewer psychic somewhere, right? You don't need all that. What you need to do is you need to have stuff in your heart that you love enough. You got it? That's it. There's nothing else for me to tell you. And this is all. This is all. This is really all you leave the universe with. Everything you leave behind tells us what you loved. Every diaper changed. Yeah, I know, ladies. I wanted to let that sink in for a second. Every diaper changed. Every time the grass is mowed. Every time something's fixed. Every time you buy something. Every time you put effort into something. Every time you read a book. Every time you don't read a book. Every time you watch a YouTube video and what it's about, they all tell me who you are. And this effort of love is the only thing that you'll ever leave behind that anybody will remember. And life's no more complicated than that. Never was, never will be. You can listen to all these shysters and ne'er-do-wells and weirdos and freaks all you want. But this is how you spell love. And this is what it means. And you'll do this, or you won't. And it'll tell me the content of your heart. So, your homework is to understand that there are millions of good people all around the world who are trying to do the right things just like you are. And Jesus says that we'll know that we're connected and that we're human when we love them. Because there's two layers to love. There's the layer of love that you give your enemies. And there's the layer that says that we belong to each other because we love each other. And Jesus says that's the only connection between each other that really matters at all. So, go do your homework. And thanks for watching this one. And you have a great week. And then we'll see. Maybe I'll come out with something else by Christmas. I just need motivated at this point to figure out what that would be. So we'll see. But I hope with this one, I left you with something worth seeing. Thank you.